Don't listen to men's rights activists if you want to know what they have to say.
Don't listen to men's rights activists if you want to know what they have to say. Don't listen to men's rights activists if you want to know what they have to say.
Hello, fellow shitlords, and welcome to another edition of Breaking Badger News. I am your host, not Max Starrett, although I miss him already. Brian Martinez, that's me. And I'm joined by...
Mike J. How you doing, guys?
I am doing well. Thank you, Mike, for asking, because nobody asks me that anymore. You might be wondering, where is the stapler? Where is Lindsay? Unfortunately, Lindsay is not going to be joining us today because we don't have the technology to include her this time. I'm talking about, of course, a splitter for headphones. But no, fear not, she'll be back very soon as I get $5 to spare. So let's just jump right into it, as Philip DeFranco might say. So the EU is trying to seize the memes of production. A new copyright law from the European Union would lead to the banning of memes on the internet, among other things, campaigners are warning. The EU Copyright Directive intends to protect the intellectual property rights of people who upload their material to the internet. This morning, the EU's Legal Affairs Committee, JURI, voted in favor of the legislation, called the Copyright Directive. Though most of the directive only updates the technical language regarding copyright law for the internet age, there are two very troubling provisions. One, a link tax which would force online platforms such as Google and Facebook, amongst others, it allows them to buy licenses from media companies before linking their stories. This one is called Article 11. The other is an upload filter, which would require that everything uploaded within the EU is checked for copyright infringement, sort of like YouTube's Content ID system. This one is called Article 13. Article 13 is the one that people take issue with. Those critical of this legislation say the previously mentioned articles are vaguely worded and ripe for abuse. Quote, "The methods to address the issue are catastrophic and will hurt the people they want to protect. It is a sad day for the internet, but the fight is not over yet," end quote, said Green MEP Julia Reda. Many are concerned the law will require that all content uploaded to the internet is to be monitored and potentially deleted if a likeness to existing copyright is protected. The law would destroy the internet as we know it, warned the campaigners, who add it would also allow big companies to control what we see and do online. One of the more well-known casualties of this proposal will be the usage of internet memes. Many believe that this is intentional, as memes have been instrumental for social change of all kinds, from Gamergate to criticisms of social justice, Islamists, and feminism, also Brexit, and even all the way to the Trump presidency. If the EU could censor or control your memes, they could control the voice of the internet. It's not just a plenary vote by the European Parliament that will decide the fate of the Copyright Directive. Currently, the legislation is also set to be debated in what are known as, quote, trilogue negotiations, end quote, which are closed-door discussions between EU legislators and member states. This is troubling to many, as it basically circumnavigates the democratic process. Those are intended to speed the process of adapting new laws. But there are still critics that say that it is opaque and undemocratic. Whether or not the Copyright Directive will be subject to such negotiations is undecided. The EU might take your memes, so why not come over to America? We have a space force now, and service guarantees citizenship. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on this whole shenanigans, all this business?
At face value, Article 13 is unworkable at best and downright Orwellian at worst. Given that no human team could ever begin to check and scan all posts made to sites such as Facebook and Twitter, that responsibility would fall to a bot or bots. As anyone on YouTube can attest to, bot-based content flagging is spotty, to say the least. Sure, they can match content well enough most of the time, but a bot lacks the ability to distinguish context. Certain things that should be flagged will slip the net, and other things that shouldn't will be wrongly flagged. There's also the matter of the financial strain this copyright software will put on websites trying to comply with the new EU regulation. Clearly the big guys such as Google and Facebook will be able to afford it, but it won't always be affordable, especially for currently existing smaller websites and future startups. Finally, there will be the fear that this regulation will be a further step in eroding free speech. Memes are an important way in which we share not only jokes, but our ideas and our views. Memes also help to convey sensitive or controversial subjects in a way that makes them easier to think about and discuss. If that ability is taken away, it becomes easier to enforce not only what we say, but also what we do and even what we think.
So I use the meme instead, the unit of cultural inheritance. Anything that's copied, in this case from brain to brain. It could be something like a tune that you whistle, and somebody else picks up the tune and whistles it again, and then it spreads like an epidemic.
Given the circumstance, I think it would be appropriate to recite a poem originally written by Martin Niemöller, but with a few select changes made to reflect our current situation. First they came for the Harambe mourners, and I did not speak out, because I was not a mourner of Harambe. Then they came for the Pepes, and I did not speak out, because I was not a poster of Pepes. Then they came for the Nazi pug owners, and I did not speak out, because I was not the owner of a Nazi pug. Then they came for my memes, and there was no one left to meme about it.
Somebody get PETA on the phone and save our memes. PETA, make yourself useful. All right, so let us move on to the next story. Thank you for the commentary, Mike. This is a bigger one. VidCon responds to Anita. Last year, Anita Sarkeesian attacked her audience while on a panel regarding something about how women are the largest victims on the internet, next to people of color, trans folks, and other non-white, non-straight, non-men. With VidCon 2018 starting today, June 20th, VidCon released a statement regarding Anita Sarkeesian's experience last year, which prompted Polygon to write the following article. Last year's VidCon, a fan-driven convention that brings YouTube creators, Twitch streamers, and other influencers together with their most dedicated supporters, was marked by one particular panel that featured Feminist Frequency founder Anita Sarkeesian. VidCon CEO Jim Louderback is now calling everything that happened that day a mistake that the organization has learned from. At VidCon 2017, Sarkeesian appeared on a panel titled Women Online and explored subjects like harassment that women often face on the internet. It is a topic Sarkeesian knows intimately. She was one of the primary targets during Gamergate, a harassment campaign that targeted women in the games industry, masked as a fight for ethics in games journalism, and still faces backlash today for her Tropes vs. Women documentary series. While Sarkeesian is used to speaking in front of large crowds, her VidCon appearance was made more stressful by the appearance of a few notorious YouTubers who have antagonized her over the year, including Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, and Dave Cullen. When Sarkeesian addressed Benjamin and his pals sitting in the first few rows in an attempt to antagonize her, Benjamin started yelling back about his right to debate her. A statement released by VidCon following the panel called out Benjamin, Cullen, and others for, quote, intentional intimidation, adding that, quote, the panelists were understandably on edge throughout the discussion, end quote. As we get better every year, we're like, oh, we made a mistake here, Louderback said. We're just going to make sure we don't let that happen this year. We'll have some more senior VidCon staff at some of the sessions that we probably think this could happen. But if anything happens, we'll actually have staff that are empowered to smooth it out if we need to. We want to stand for speakers too. We're going to still worry about that. I felt so bad for Anita. It was a tough one. It's a real tough one. Louderback didn't say anything about banning or refusing entry to YouTubers known for inciting harassment towards others, but it's something that Sarkeesian told Polygon last year that she hopes the staff consider. She told Polygon the following after VidCon and her panel came to an end. When push comes to shove, conventions like VidCon should stand up and support women and other marginalized folks who are harassed. Why should I have to go out there in this toxic environment? Why aren't these men punished for creating that environment? After all, this is a conference about online video culture attended primarily by YouTubers, and it's no secret that YouTube has an incredibly toxic culture. It's critical that events like VidCon recognize that and implement policies that prevent that toxicity from bleeding over into the event. No YouTube creator who makes videos that serve to target and harass individuals should be allowed to attend, and anyone who uses material filmed at a convention to harass individuals should be blacklisted from future events. Louderback told Polygon part of the mission to protest speakers and ensure this type of situation doesn't occur again is looking at panels that may feature divisive issues and increase the number of security and VidCon employees at those events. One of the things that we look at every time now when we see something that potentially has a divisive issue is making sure that we've got more VidCon staff there to be able to deal with and handle it, Louderback said. We don't want to shy away from hard questions or hard issues, but we're trying to get better every year. That said, if Anita does get her way with Louderback and does institute a ban on impure YouTubers like Sargon, which is entirely possible, what then can we do the next time Sargon goes to VidCon?
Hey Brian, I've got an idea.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! Spartacus!
All right, so some things I want to clear up. In Polygon's description of what happened, I was at VidCon, I was sitting in the front row, and there are some photos where I'm in it and I'm next to Alison and Dr. Ranamaram and also Dave Cullen. He's like right next to me. So right there in the front row, Andy Worski, the whole bit. And we saw what happened. We were there, and there's videos everywhere. In Polygon's description of what happened, when Sarkeesian addressed Benjamin and his pal sitting in the first few rows in an attempt to antagonize her. Okay. When she addressed the people sitting in the front row that she recognized, she insulted the front row first, specifically Sargon. She called him a garbage human and a shithead. He didn't say anything. None of us said anything. We were just watching the panel. We wanted to see what the discussion would be. It was our plan to be there. There were people who were saying that no one was there. The fact is that as packed as VidCon was, by comparison, you might say that Anita Sarkeesian's panel did not have a massive turnout, as there were plenty of empty seats. But it was not empty. There were still a good number of people that were interested in what she had to say. It was clear, though, that most people who went to VidCon either don't know who she is or don't care because they were too busy trying to find Logan Paul or something like that. And I'm talking about the 12 and 13-year-old girls, which is what VidCon was mostly populated by. So Polygon is wrong by describing how Anita treated Carl as addressing him when she used her platform to insult him directly, and he says he started yelling back about his right to debate her. He specifically said, "I would just like to talk to you." And he only tried to say it loud enough that she would hear over all of the booing and clapping and sort of raucous noise that was coming once Anita attacked Sargon in the front row. He was just trying to get his voice heard. He wasn't being aggressive, despite the fact that Polygon is making it look that way. I was there and I saw it. Cullen didn't do anything at all. I'm not sure that there's even a reason for his name to be mentioned. He didn't say anything, and he was just there next to me quietly watching, and maybe we got a laugh out of Anita's reaction. But there was nothing untoward that happened there, and Polygon's just lying like they always are. So those are my main thoughts on it. But Mike, you and I were talking before we started the recording, and you mentioned that because VidCon started this year, there was a kind of a look back on VidCon 2017 thing that happened with Boogie. Could you started to tell me about it, but I wanted to wait until we were recording. So could you tell me what you experienced or what you saw?
Well, they put out a video today on H3's podcast featuring Boogie, and the thing I like about him when he's on someone else's channel is he tends to be a lot more uncensored, very unfiltered, and he was mostly going over his experience there, and he starts off very kind of warmly about like how, I kind of got it from both ends after that, but he goes into detail about the backstage meeting he had with Sarkeesian right when the panel ended, right when he said the thing that really set her off, which was, hey, I'm straight, I'm white, I'm a male, and I too get harassment, and yeah, she was not very happy about that backstage, and he described it in such a way where it makes it sound like it was really, really, really stressful for him. But in the same sentence goes, well, she's really not that bad. I think she's trying to do the right thing. I just think she's kind of misunderstood.
Whoa.
And, yeah. I want to like Boogie, but he just seems to take the middle-of-the-road approach far, far, far too often. Even when it's someone that he has just finished describing a story about how he was so horribly mistreated by them.
Yeah, the thing about Boogie is, based on my... what I've seen of him in his videos, and I don't watch a lot of Boogie, but I mean, when this whole VidCon thing happened, I did watch the videos he made about that. And it seems to me that Boogie has some extremely severe social anxiety issues, which is not entirely surprising. I would imagine that a lot of people that use YouTube as sort of like their main way of getting their thoughts and ideas out there probably do have some social anxiety issues, especially if they're talking about the stuff that people like us, people like Boogie, that tend to be passionate about, whether it's about, some kind of hobby or some kind of a political interest that isn't too popular, for example. So based on what I know about that and his story, he makes it sound as though basically getting into any arguments with anyone, or, finding himself in a situation where people are talking about something very important and therefore the stressors are kind of high. I think he really, really is risk averse when it comes to that, because it can really, really trigger his anxiety, right? And
that's exactly what he mentions in the video too. He says, I was getting to a point where I said, you're kind of starting to really mess with my anxiety, and I do have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I might be flying off the handle here soon if you keep up with this approach. Can we please talk about this in a more civil fashion, which she at least let him do eventually.
Yeah, sure, and that's what I'm saying. I knew that's what it was, and so I think the main reason why he takes a very middle-of-the-road, let me see if I can make everyone happy approach is specifically to avoid these conflicts, to avoid these confrontations. So, yes, I'm with you. It can be frustrating because sometimes I'm just like, Boogie, and this, I would say this to anyone. If you treat everyone as though they're all decent people and they're, some are just sort of misunderstood, or they just don't, they just haven't communicated their ideas very well, or they haven't thought them through, or whatever, I think that you give really bad people a pass. And you also make yourself into a doormat. And there has to be a point at which you have to say,
I think we're just going to shut this down, because I'm not into all this melodrama and you playing the victim and everything. I don't play those kind of games. You're very manipulative, and I'm not interested in all of that.
I'm not going to put up with this from you. And I can't, obviously, this is a lesson that I can't, expect Boogie to just take on. But I would say that for folks that don't have to deal with the extreme sort of social anxiety, that they shouldn't have to do that. They should not. People like Anita Sarkeesian do not actually care about you. She doesn't care about any of the stuff that he thinks she cares about. She cares about the ways in which her ideology can serve her career. That's ultimately what she cares about, which, by the way, because I know there are people who say she's not a real feminist and, this is just a way of making money for her and blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, all feminists just want to perpetuate more feminism so that they can continue to profit or get more power. So none of them actually care about women's issues or men's issues or all the other protected groups' issues. Anita's just more transparent with it, I think. And that's my opinion on it. With Boogie, on this H3H3 thing, what would you say that his takeaway was? That Anita was a decent person and they just sort of like clashed personality-wise? Or was there something else that he got? Did he learn anything from the experience at all or grow?
It's really hard to say how much he absorbed or how much they agreed on. It sounded like they disagreed on, as he put it, basically everything. But he wants to use the fact that, hey, look, I got to talk to her as something of a victory, and I don't see it as something like that. By the way, Boogie, Ethan, if you guys are watching, you're always welcome on the HBR show. Just an open invite.
I'd love to talk to Boogie and Ethan, actually, yeah. I'm noticing that more of the mainstream larger YouTubers are, say, forced to deal with the feminism problem in some way or another. And so I'm sure that there's probably some stuff that they would like to learn from that, or at least talk about. And I'd be more than happy to have them on or go on their show.
To Ethan's credit, by the way, he was not having any of it. He's pretty darn red-pilled on Anita, at least.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, man. He had Jordan Peterson on, so I think he smoked with him or something. It was pretty hilarious.
When the Olympics start.
Hey, look, if it's rituals are important.
Yeah, thank you.
And if this is a ritual that's important
okay,
to you,
so
then I'm happy to comply.
Rip it fat.
Okay, so I just breathe in.
Yeah, breathe in. I got the button. Fat rip. Nice. You're good. Yeah, you're good.
Snoop Dogg. You know what happened with the
I think Ethan is pretty woke. He also, there was the Humongous incident, too. He had Humongous on his show as well. So, good for you, Ethan. Good man. Last thing I will say is this. Some people were talking about how, maybe they shouldn't go back to VidCon this year. I shared this with... I talked to Alison about it, Dave Cullen about it. This specifically this article and this whole VidCon business, and we're all in agreement, and I'm sure that many of us are. VidCon isn't even really that cool anyway, and I'm not saying that in the sour grapes kind of way. It really wasn't that fruitful of an experience. Not the convention itself, but meeting the people, meeting the other YouTubers was great, but we didn't need VidCon to do that. And VidCon itself is basically 12-year-old girls trying to find Logan Paul. And it's feminists and SJWs like Francesca Ramsey, Kat Black, and Arnita Sarkeesian using their massive platforms provided to them by the Vlog Brothers so they can talk to a small number of people, because it's really relatively small, that agree with their positions already, and they do not invite challenge. And that's all it is. And the majority of the audience of VidCon don't even know who they are, probably, and they certainly aren't interested. So VidCon really isn't worth the money or time. And we don't really have an interest in going there. If anything, we could probably just do our own thing. I'm not even a big fan of all of the celebrity hype surrounding it, So even if the Badgers became big, I don't think that VidCon will be the place where we would go for that. I like our little meetups and our little sort of social gatherings where we can have discussions and conversations, because those are the things that I enjoy the most. So fuck VidCon, really.
It's just a giant normie festival.
It is. It's really, really, really cringy. Okay, so that's all we got for today. Tell us what your thoughts are on both the VidCon situation as well as the meme situation with the European Union. Do you think it's going to go through? Do you think that you guys are going to be able to fight? I am going to include a link to a petition that Dave Cullen has passed around on his own video regarding it, and this will allow you guys to push back a bit on this whole EU business. It is called SaveYourInternet.eu, and I will include the link in the low bar. Sign the petition, spread the word, see if you can push back, contact your local MPs or whatever it is you guys do over there in Europe land, and see if you can get this reversed, because this is bad news, and it's probably a bad idea pretty much for everybody involved. So you probably don't want to go with that anyway. All right. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and get us out of here. Thank you, Mike J, for coming on. and hanging out with me on this edition of Breaking Badger News. I have been Brian Martinez, and we will talk to you guys next time.